So anyway, open to questions. Yes?
Just an ethical question on marketing to these social sites. You suggested, you have to get in and become part of the site, kind of penetrate it, do commando marketing in there. Where's the marketing world come down on planting people into those communities and planting your content into those
Let me just say that it's frowned upon for a couple of reasons. It depends. For example, if they discover, let me just give you an example. There are sites out there that blog for people. In other words, yes, exactly. But the thing is, if they, it's one of two things. If it's disclosed that you are a blogger for a company and they know that you're being paid or you're getting some compensation for it, and you disclose that, that's not bad. You're actually, that can actually work for you. If you don't disclose it and they discover it, that's bad. So the key here is disclose who you are and your intent. And it's pretty well, they can't stop you from saying anything on the internet,
When I was buying a vacuum cleaner, I went on some of these sites where they had reviews. Some of those reviews seemed awfully carefully worded to make this vacuum cleaner seem perfect. So how do you sort through these planted reviews?
It's not easy. It's really up to the, if we talk to people who have reviews, we try to have them be as honest as possible and sprinkle in some reviews that look more realistic because, you can screen the reviews. So maybe they screened out all the bad ones. It's really hard. The only thing I would do is maybe call the people and say, you really happy? Because if you can figure out where the person is, maybe you can call. That's the only thing.
The person who put the review in?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's really hard, is what I'm saying. You can't always know. And at the beginning, when what's the name of that site? City Search. When City Search first came out, I was thinking West Side Story, the website story here. When they first came out, they had user reviews, and a lot of them were restaurant reviews. And people said that was the same exact thrust at that time, because they said, well, you got your aunt, your uncle, your brother, your cousin, it's all family that did, 20 reviews, and it's very hard to decipher, if everybody's from your family, it gets really overused. But then, you could go to other review sites for vacuum cleaners. On the other hand, you could go to some sites that actually review vacuum cleaners. So then you're going to an independent.
Well, I thought it was independent, but I guess there's ways.
Well, that probably wasn't. So you probably, even though you did a search, it probably wasn't one of those. Because there are independent, they'll say, we've done research. Maybe it was the best vacuum. I don't know.
It's not that great.
Then you should go on the site and write that, and see if your message is picked up. And I would say if it's not, I would call them and say, I think that this is not the way to go. Again, even our discussion of it gets you engaged. In other words, it got you engaged in even thinking about that and thinking about that question. And I think we all, as users, have to think about that. Because, we talk about it all the time in the office, for example. I don't like the fact that when I do a search today, they're targeting Boston for me. I get a lot of results when I'm doing a search that are targeted to the Boston area. And I'm not looking for Boston. I'm looking for a national, result, and I'm getting Boston, and they're IP targeting me to Boston, and that's not, so there's a lot of controversy. Can you turn that off? At Search Engine Strategies, they were talking about that. Is there something that you could choose at the beginning of your search, saying, I want honest results. I don't want you to target Boston or my geo-targeting, or my behavior. Can you turn that stuff off? Right now, it's very hard to do.
When you're talking about geo-targeting, you're referring to organic searches or pay-per-click results?
Both.
Cool.
Both. So, any other questions?
It's just the phenomenon of globalization. They do target where you're from, and they I notice that once in a while too. But how do they know I live in Worcester? And I learned a lot today from that. What about in Europe and in China and the Far East? How is that going to come into play now? Are they going to start? Barring shipping, shipping is always going to be a big issue, I guess, paying for that. What are the trends going on there? Are you going to see more, distributors in the Far East giving product directly to consumers rather than going through a brand company in the United States, for example?
That's that's a good question. I don't know. I think if you can get to the website, the foreign website, if they have a U.S. version of the website, you probably can get to their products. You won't. I think the real key is you won't even know that you're in a foreign website,
Right.
except maybe for the messaging and the language.
Right.
Because I know when I read a website, I can tell it was written either in India or China or something like that, and because the language it's not fluent, it's not English, And so I'm saying some developer somewhere had some coder that didn't really understand the language. But other than that, you won't know. And the other thing too is what we're finding today is a lot of companies are in fact going to China for goods and services, bringing them to warehouses here, and then selling them through a non-branded or white paper or white label, whatever, and not disclosing that they're actually being made offshore. So it's that also is merging, by the way. That's the globalization piece is just everything is getting fuzzy as far as advertising and marketing, because we're actually building some global sites in 5-6 countries, all over, and we're doing it here, so we're actually controlling it and doing it well, I think. But it's hard to say. Because the marketing is the same. You just need to know what their restrictions are in their countries. For example, if you want to, for example, have a French word or something, you have to have French content on your site. They won't sell you words in France that you don't have content for. I think any pay-per-click or any search won't honor those words unless you actually have content around it in that language.
Great, thanks.
Used to be just homepage, but now they're a little bit more sticky. Well, I thank you all.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you.
What's the last thing you were talking about with Google?
Gmail. Yeah, Gmail. They give it away free, and I understand it's very for those of you that use it. It's a very robust, mailing system, and it's free. I mean, but the thing is, they do target you, and they do know everything about you. So, again, that's their goal. So, again, thank you, and come visit our booth. And if you have any questions that you didn't want to ask in front of a whole group of people, I'd be happy to talk to you about it. Great.